What's up, guys? Coming at you from Shenzhen, coronavirus apocalypse zone. Well, not as bad as Wuhan, but I'm coming at you for another drive around. And this time I'm going to have a little bit more of a purpose to my drive. I want to drive by one of the hospitals and see if it's busy. I want to see if there's any flow of cars or people going in. And also, I want to check out a gas station. I want to check out a gas station and make sure that they're still open. Because if they're not, I'm going to stop doing these drive arounds and start preserving my gas. But I think they're probably open. It's good to double check though. But let me first flip the camera around and so you can see something a little bit more interesting, and we'll get off to our drive. All right, so quick updates from what's going on the ground. Some pretty interesting things going on with here in Shenzhen, my garden that we live in. They're not allowing vehicles to come in and out who are not residents of the building. They sent us a message and told us to let all of our friends know. There's guys that go around the garden every day with these kind of plastic containers on their back and these spray guns, kind of like when you see people spraying like pesticides in the fields and stuff like that. And they're doing that every day. It's got a strong smell to it. I think it's like Dettol or some kind of a bleach or something like that. They spray the elevators too. And just all sorts of precautions taken like that. I received an update from my nephew in a small village in Jiangxi. He sent me a picture. They have actually blocked off the entire road out of his village. So now it's his village, and there's a small township, so there's places they can still buy food. But they've basically brought a dump truck in and they've completely sealed off his village. And apparently this is happening all over China to restrict the movement of people. And even my brewmaster, he called me today and he said that probably he's not going to be back on time. He needs me to go into my brew pub and reduce the temperature on one of the beers that's finished fermenting. He's like, I don't know when I can get out of here. So it's pretty epic. They also, my nephew sent me a video of a vehicle that's traveling around their village, kind of a propaganda vehicle, telling people to wash their hands and all the safety precautions and what they're supposed to do. I mean, it's really weird. They have mobile phone. Well, I guess there may be some people in the village that don't use mobile phones. I don't know, but it was pretty cool to see. And but let me show you that video. Hold on. Okay, so I probably fit that in there. And yeah, so that's what's going on. I mean, the response is pretty epic. And the only negative thing is in the villages, the price of food has gone up a lot. I've also heard from my sister-in-law, and she said that what they usually pay for example, like a head of lettuce, 5 renminbi, now it's 29 renminbi. So it's gone up a lot. Now here, I went to the supermarket today in Shenzhen, and it was quite an experience. When we got out of the elevator, this was on -1. It's called Rainbow Supermarket. And when we come out of the elevator, there's a guy in a suit there that's taking the temperature of everybody. If you've got a fever, you're obviously not going to be allowed in. And supplies were still okay there. There was a lot of vegetables, there were a lot of things. And Rainbow, this particular supermarket brand, they said that they would not be increasing their prices. So the prices were all the same there. And I saw something pretty funny. I saw a guy walking around. Everybody had masks on, but there was one guy who had a snorkel on. And it was kind of just funny because he was walking around with a hunch too, so it made it look even more funny. And I laugh at it, but it's probably not a bad idea because there are stories of people getting infected through their eyes, right? But I still couldn't help but laugh. And even more so when he went to the checkout and joined his wife, who also had her own set of snorkels on. It was really funny to see. But as I said, it's probably not a bad idea. But yeah, so we're on the ground now, and we're heading to the hospital that I'm going to go drive by is Binhe Hospital. So it was a hospital that was a joint project between Hong Kong and Shenzhen, and it's perceived as a pretty good hospital. And you can go to any of the hospitals here to test if you have a fever and to check if it really is coronavirus. And if it is, then there's a specific hospital in Shenzhen for everybody who's been diagnosed with coronavirus. It's called like the People's Number 2 Hospital or something like that. I think it's closer to Lohu, but I have absolutely no interest to take you guys there. I know this may sound a bit paranoid, but I don't want to drive around there. I don't know what's in the air. If people have been sneezing. I just watched this video on sneezing on the subway and how long the particles of, the particles that came out of this guy's nose who sneezed stays in the cabin. Now, of course, out in the open is a little bit different, but I just don't want to take any risks. We've got kids at home, and the youngest is 10 months old, so I don't mind being a little bit more paranoid. I'm just picturing me going there, my car breaking down for some kind of a reason, and being kind of like a zombie apocalypse movie, saying, "Oh my God, what do I do now?" I had a friend from Shanghai who actually said something even more funny. He said there's not many cars on the road in Shanghai, but when he passes a car which has a Wuhan license plate, he slows down, puts his mask on, turns the car on to recirculate, then overtakes him, which I thought was really funny too. But I don't mind being, as I said, mind being paranoid with having kids around. And but with this regular hospital, I'm curious if it's going to kind of be as packed and jammed as a lot of people are seeing on videos, because I have a feeling that, I mean, this is flu season, right? People are going to be getting temperatures, but people are going to be panicking a lot more when they do have a fever this time around. So that might make a situation where more people are going to the hospital that wouldn't normally go to the hospital. They'd wait it out. Now they're just panicking. And I don't know how I feel about that, because it's like, well, now you've got to go to a hospital where a bunch of people have a varying degree of viruses, and you got to sit in a waiting room with them, and doesn't it make it worse? So I would almost want to self-diagnose to a certain degree to check and make sure it's not coronavirus. I mean, that's probably hard to self-diagnose, but there certainly seems like there's a risk involved with taking yourself to a hospital during a time like this here. And so that's something to keep in mind with these the hospital kind of queues that you're seeing on social media. I'm sure people are even more panicked in Wuhan than they would be here. And regarding that, I saw there was a viral, well, not really viral, but there were a bunch of people sharing a WeChat article about a drug that they found to treat this virus, and it was based on the same kind of drugs that they use for HIV/AIDS patients. And when my wife received it, I said, "Don't reshare that. That sounds like BS." And she says, "Yeah, no. She wasn't planning on resharing it, but I looked into it, and it was BS." And then a few days later, it was the next day or a couple days later, they removed that post from the internet. And that's kind of censorship at work here, because I'm sure there was somebody behind that sold some sort of drugs related to that, and they just wanted to profit off of the panic. And it kind of made me think of something. It kind of made me think, okay, I was pretty critical of the Wuhan government also, because there was a period of time when they didn't let this news out. And it raised an interesting question for me, where I asked, well, how many times did they use this censorship to actually block news that indeed was fake, that was just somebody trying to cause panic or profit off of driving people into a panic? We don't know, because we only see the times when it doesn't work right. And this was the time it didn't work right. So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. It doesn't mean that this has exposed flaws in the systems that they use. I mean, we got to come to an agreement that, yes, they have censorship in China, whether you agree with it or not. However they're using it, if they believe it's for the greater good, this certainly has introduced some important questions in regards to how can it be improved? And look at how bad it is when it does go wrong. But those are some pretty important things to kind of mull through, some ideas to mull through. I mean, if you're open-minded enough to even think about something like that, a lot of people, they just see a way of doing things and they shut down and they say, no, absolutely not. There's no excuse for this whatsoever. And I think a lot of this one-dimensional thinking is kind of really rampant right now. You know, the response has been spectacular here. I mean, shutting off villages and sending out propaganda vans to tell people to wash their hands. And Hong Kong is, this was a Hong Kong decision, not a China decision. Hong Kong is blocking the entry of mainlanders to Hong Kong soon, and also Filipinos for some reason. because there was one of the Filipino there's a lot of Filipino maids in Hong Kong, and one of the agencies sent out a thing saying, if your maids are in China, tell them to come back before the borders are closed on the 30th. If you have a Hong Kong ID card, you can still go back and forth, but Chinese mainlanders will not be allowed in after January 30th at midnight. So there's all this stuff going on, and there's an important thing that somebody brought to my attention, and they said, well, imagine this happened in India, where they don't have the same kind of infrastructure, and they don't have the same ability to respond as quickly as they have here. Of course, there was a delay time in the beginning, but even if you add up that delay that happened in the beginning to the response that happened after it was made public, I still think you'd have a harder time catching up. And if this was to happen anywhere in the world, in a lot of regards, of course, we wish that it wouldn't happen anywhere, but in a lot of regards, this is the place for it to happen in terms of largely populated areas because of this ability to respond like this. But now, if it happened in India, it would be so easy to just villainize them for whatever people want to villainize them for. That's what people are doing here now. Is it's like the blame game is such an easy game to play. So of course in China here, you have a culture where you eat from the same dishes. Well, you have your own bowl and you've got these plates in the middle with various dishes, and you're all digging in with your own chopsticks. So it's probably not the best for controlling the spread of germs. But, and then in India, you've got people who actually eat with their hands. I haven't been to India. I've been to Sri Lanka, and they do the same there. And I've done it, and I really got into it. I said, okay, I can kind of understand this. And it's a cool part of their culture, but maybe that will be something that they villainize. And I don't know, because it's kind of the trendy thing to do right now, obviously, is to villainize China and Chinese. I don't know if they'd get away with it in the same way, but these are kinds of the things that people aren't considering as they're weighing their own arguments. I don't think people really kind of go into detail. Of course, the wet markets have a lot of hygienic standards they could improve here, but it's like, the Spanish flu was researched to have avian origins. And we've got the swine flu, which came from pig. And we've got all these things, mad cow disease or whatever it is you want to talk about. And it's like, well, why don't we ban all of these different kinds of foods then? No, because it's in China and it happens to be something that other people don't eat. So, hey, easy target. Again, that doesn't mean that it doesn't raise some important questions about standards that need to be raised in these markets or certain controls that need to be put in place. But, and you don't necessarily have to agree with those things, but there's certainly things you should be running and processing through your head to say, okay, testing the strength of your own argument. But I don't think people are asking these kinds of questions. People tend to take a shallow look at things and stop when it gives them the answer they want, or continue to dig only until they reach something that basically confirms their bias or tells them something that they want to hear. I think these are all really important things to keep in mind. Okay, so I'm coming up, so on the right here is a place called OCT Bay, and it's kind of a shopping area with some bars, there's a hotel. It's a nice little area. I don't see too many people out. When you're looking at these roads, one thing to keep in mind is the city really empties out during Chinese New Year. So this isn't necessarily uncharacteristic of how empty the streets are in Shenzhen during this time. But I think for sure it is somewhat emphasized by this whole thing that's going on, that's for sure. A lot of these shops are closed, and that's actually another interesting thing, is some shops have actually landlords have offered to give a month of free rent to people, to shops. Because, going under for a month, not having business for a month, that's going to be tough. And maybe in some cases, even providing 1 month of free rent will still put some businesses in a really difficult situation where they've lost a month of sales. But it certainly will help. And we were asking our lawyer if this is something that's, something we can request or apply for, if there's any government assistance for this. And he said that these are things that landlords are doing kind of out of their own kindness at the moment, but there is certainly a possibility that the government will step in and say, hey, landlords, this is something you need to do. That doesn't sound like something that's a very impossible thing to happen here. So fingers crossed, because that will help out a lot. We've got a few locations here, a couple of bars and and a brew pub, of course. And yeah, we'll see when we can open. We still don't know. The date keeps getting pushed out. But people are taking it seriously here, and I think that's really important for a lot of people to recognize, is to praise the people here for participating in this, for staying closed, and taking all these extra precautions. Whether you think it was too late or not, or they could have done it earlier, people are participating here to really nip this in the bud, and that's a good thing for the entire world. Speaking of praising people, I was looking at the workers in the supermarkets and thinking, these guys are still showing up to work, still doing their job, allowing us a place where we can come buy our vegetables and food. And when you get disasters, a lot of first responders get praised, and I really feel like these guys should really be praised for, they have a job, they want to earn money, but to still show up during a time like this, hats off to them. So the hospital's here on the left. I see a few people going in, not many. It looks like there are some guards who are checking people's temperatures as they go in, but nothing really busy. It doesn't look really busy here. Yeah, not very busy at all. Okay. All right, we'll loop around and see if there's a gas station just behind here. I want to see if the gas station's open. But yeah, so these people who are showing up to work are great. We usually buy our vegetables and groceries online. There's a company called Hema, and there's a few other actually that do delivery to your door, and it's so convenient living here. Like everything usually you order vegetables and stuff like that online, and it arrives at your door within 40 minutes to 2 hours. And now if you order, it takes 2 or 3 days. You've got to book 2 or 3 days in advance. Express shipments, we're used to like everything. We buy stuff off Taobao and it arrives the next day. We ordered a pack of diapers for our 10-month-old, and it's been stuck in the local delivery office for 5 days. Usually when it hits the local delivery office, it's out within a few hours to your door. There's limited transport also, and there was a joke that was actually going around that was saying that, hey, it was in Chinese. It said, are you stuck at home? Are you watching lots of TV? You can't find a way to arrange going out with your friends. You have limited public transit. You've actually got to go to the supermarket to buy your stuff. Well, congratulations. You know what it's like for overseas Chinese now. And that really resonated with my wife, because my wife was like, oh, it's so inconvenient. My parents live in the suburbs in Canada, and when we go and visit for the summer sometimes, she says it's so funny. And my brother moved back to Canada, and his wife is living there now as well, and she's Chinese as well. And she was saying the same thing. She commented on it because my wife posted it on her WeChat. She's like, oh my God, it's so true. And this is her first time to Canada, and not only to Canada, but then she's just going directly to live there. Okay, so yeah, people are here. Oh, they think I want to get gas, but yeah, people are here and they're filling up gas. So I can still make these drive around videos for you. I was gonna say, if gas stations are closed, I'm not gonna be doing these drive around videos anymore, but no, they're open. We're cool. So yeah, we've kind of been reset here. All of these conveniences are gone, and it's like we've stepped back. I explained to you like how extreme it gets, how in terms of convenience. I remember one time we were going to a park here and we forgot our we brought our badminton rackets and we forgot the birdies. And so we just used a Jindong Daojia. It's like a JD Express, I think that's what it's called. And we basically ordered birdies to play badminton with, and they brought it within 30 minutes to our location in the park. They delivered it to us in the park, to our picnic mat, which is really remarkable. And now we've completely stepped back, and it almost feels like the last time I've had a feeling like this was during the 2003 the blackout in North America along the East Coast. All the power was out, and it was a really remarkable experience. It was just out of this world. Some of the gas stations stopped working because they rely on electric pumps to bring the gas up. Others, I think, had generators. And what did I do? I drove up with a bunch of friends to Wasaga Beach, and we went swimming, and I remember that very well because the next day we looked at the news and we were like, oh my God. Because apparently there's a sewage treatment facility near there, and because the electricity was out, some sort of a valve wasn't working, and it was dumping raw sewage into the lake. And I mean, I think we were far enough away where it didn't affect us, but still we were like, oh my God, that's disgusting. But yeah, it was quite an adventure. And I feel like it's kind of the same thing here. We've kind of been reset. It's a different kind of conveniences we've lost, and maybe it's not as extreme in terms of the difference to life. I mean, living without power completely is a whole different ball game. There's some beautiful pictures of the east coast of North America when, at nighttime, when there was no electricity. It's just this chunk missing from North America. It's a spectacular picture from outer space. But it kind of feels like that here, where it's just this weird thing that's going on. And when I was filming my last episode in Taps in my brew pub, and there were some people who walked by the front of my door. My doors were locked, but they wanted to knocked on the door to say hi to me and stuff like that. And it was so interesting for them to see another human being. It's just a weird feeling overall. But yeah, in terms of the numbers are going up a lot. They've been kind of doubling every day, and I think a lot of people expected that because there's such a long delay between when you catch this virus and when it becomes symptomatic, which is really one of the biggest problems about catching this and containing this. So a lot of these cases that are doubling, these are cases that are popping up from before a lot of these really extreme practices have been put in place. And so what they're expecting is that there's going to be a very quick increase and then a sudden decrease. And I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I'm hoping that the theory is correct. And we'll see a decrease in numbers. We've got some overseas cases also now, so we can kind of see if they've managed to contain it. And I think that's going to be an important thing for your logic also, is to see, okay, now we've got overseas cases, and a lot of people don't trust the numbers that are coming out of China for various reasons, and some of them may be very well warranted. But in terms of the coronavirus numbers, a lot of people don't trust the numbers that are coming out of China. But if you see when this hits other countries, it's not expanding at a rate that is as quick as it's happening in China, even considering that China has, it seems to be, way more tools at their disposal to lock off cities and build 1,000-bed hospitals in 5 days. Then you start to realize, okay, maybe the numbers are more or less in line with the spread we should expect to see from this virus. And yeah, speaking of critical thinking also, in regards to that, in regards to building the hospital, a lot of people look at that, building the hospital, they're like, well, if this isn't a crisis, why are they rushing to build a hospital in 5 days? And so, sure, you can come up with some evidence to say, okay, this is likely a cover-up because of ABC. But don't forget to say, well, this is also likely characteristic of the government here. They do things pretty damn fast here. Infrastructure projects, everything, they move fast. So why couldn't this be a proactive response to saying, okay, shit, this could be really big. We need to get this infrastructure ready. Hopefully we don't have to use it, but let's build it just in case. That is a possibility also. And you can disagree with it, but again, these are things that you should be thinking about and not just saying, oh, it's a cover-up. It's like, what would you rather have? Which of those two things would you rather be true also? Rather have be true, rather. The fact that you want them to be reactive, to wait until it really is that bad to start doing this stuff. And I think the reason people think that is because they're using a Western perspective, and our infrastructure projects move so slow. But that's not what happens here. Things move fast here. And so, and that's probably the thing you'd hope to be more true also, is that, okay, this is a proactive government here that is building this stuff just in case they need it. That might be wrong, could be wrong, but again, these are things you should be considering. So I'm heading up to an area called Baishuzhou here. I'm probably gonna wrap it up here soon. This is way longer than I hoped it would be. But let's, I don't think there's many people out and about there either. Okay guys, so this is Baishuzhou here, and it looks like a lot of the restaurants, everything is closed here. Oh, there's one restaurant that's opened, a kanji restaurant. There's a pharmacy open on the left, some police here on the right. Yeah, so you know what, guys, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. So everybody stay safe. You know, this is hopefully what this turns out to be is a pretty good test run, if this isn't kind of the big one, because as I said in my previous video, there inevitably are going to be big kind of epidemics that hit us, and hopefully this serves as a test run if this isn't the big one. I don't think it is, but I think it's pretty good that everybody's treating it pretty seriously and taking all of the necessary precautions. And, you know, even if it doesn't turn out to be that big one, I'm sure the world will learn a lot from this, as long as we focus on more constructive solutions. I was just looking at, there's a new craft beer place there. But yeah, coming out of this with some constructive realizations about how the world can handle the next big one. I don't think there's a reason to panic, but taking all the precautions seriously is important, and it's important also not to lose your ability to think critically during a time like this, especially with all of the kind of fake news that's being propagated about this. And I think that's quite natural to happen during any kind of a major event. But yeah, so I'm risking rambling on way too long. This video is way longer than I hoped, so let me wrap it up there, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Take care.